How's it going, YouTube? Got another video here. It's going to be another responsive website. And today we're going to be showcasing some of the more modern CSS in a great direction that CSS is headed in helping to develop these responsive layouts and make it a lot easier to just have something real responsive and real beautiful without having to rely on something like Bootstrap or some kind of framework or library that's going to do everything for you. You can easily just do it yourself. Even with some of the stuff even with some of the new stuff that they've come out with, I found myself kind of breaking it down and rearranging things myself. But as you can see, I've got this site here that I built. Nothing special about it. It's just a mock e-commerce site for toys. It's fully responsive. You can see as you stretch and shorten it. Sorry, my words are falling out of my brain in the wrong way. Everything gets rearranged and everything's fully responsive, and this is all done with CSS Grid and Flexbox. And that's what really I want to show off today is just these modern CSS concepts, specifically Flexbox and Grid being used together. I hear a lot of videos of people talking about which one's better, which always confuses me. They're both CSS. It's not one or the other. They're meant to go together. They're meant to work together to build beautiful layouts. And this just barely scratches the surface of the power of Grid and the power of Flexbox in combination. I'm also going to be using some CSS variables. This project didn't need it too much, but I just wanted to showcase variables as well, another more modern CSS technology. So with that being said, let's jump straight in so we can get to some coding. So I've got my text editor open here. As always, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. I've got a live server running. That's one of the extensions that you can add. I'm also running Prettier as an extension to help keep my code in line. And then we'll be, of course, Visual Studio Code comes out of the box with Emmet abbreviations, which is nice too, and I'm going to be using those a lot. So I'm going to kind of go fast. You can feel free to pause the video if you need to catch up code-wise, but otherwise let's jump straight in. So what I've got here, I created a folder. You can put it anywhere you want, called My Site. Inside here I've got a blank index.html, a blank style.css, and then just this image that I found on pexels.com. And Pexels is a great place where you can find high quality images. They're all license free, just free to use. So check out Pexels to find images. You can use any image you want. I just picked this one because I like the colors, and then I kind of based the color scheme off of that. So it's a real kid friendly color scheme. Anyways, let's get into some code here. So to start us off, we're going to use our Emmet abbreviation here to get an HTML5. Get that all out of the way. We're going to change this to my store. Now, a couple things that we're going to be using in this. We're going to be using a Google font, and I'm going to just copy and paste this one in. And there we go. So you see it's this Z Cool. I don't even know what all this stuff is. I found it on Google Fonts. You can use any font you want, really, but that's just one that I liked. And we're also going to be using Font Awesome, so I'm going to grab their CDN as well. And if you guys don't know this stuff yet, just go to fontawesome.com. You can find their CDN. You want to copy and paste the link straight into your code, just like I did. And then the last one is, of course, we're going to link to our own styles of CSS sheet. Okay, and that's it for the head. Now we're going to move on to the body here, and in the body we're going to start off by creating a wrapper that we're going to put everything around. So again, I'm going to use Emmet and say .wrap, and this is going to create a div with a class wrap, and our entire application is going to go inside of this wrapper here. And then I'm going to label everything because we're going to be using the grid layouts. So I'm going to call this the header. And then inside here we're going to use the section tags because it's nice that you can do that. And then we're going to call it, actually we'll just call it, I'm sorry, we're not going to use a section tag for this one. We're just going to use a header tag. So we'll do a header. In here we're going to have an H1. We're going to say welcome to my store. And then under that we're going to have our first Font Awesome icon. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in here. This is fa-store-alt, and then I gave it an fa-2x to make it bigger as well. So if we save, you can see our items. Oops, let's get our our live server going here. For some reason this isn't working. There it is. Okay, cool. So get rid of that old one. So now you can see we got welcome to my store and our font awesome icon. So now we know font awesome is working. Wonderful. And then that's it for the header. So moving on, now we're going to use our section tags, because it's just a great way to lay out your site now that you can do this, especially when we're doing things like setting up our grid. So we're going to call this our navbar section, and then here we're going to have section.navbar. So section tags with the class of navbar, and then inside here we're going to have our nav tags, and this is where we'll be putting our navbar. So inside the nav we're going to have a link, and that's not going to go anywhere. We're not trying to build a real site here. We're going to give it a class of btn, and this is a class that I'm going to create later. I'm not going to use Bootstrap or anything like that, and we'll say home. All of these classes will eventually be our own CSS that we're going to write. Okay, so we've got home. We're going to change the second link. It's going to be locate store, and then we want shopping cart, and then the last one we'll say about, and save. Okay, so we got our nav done, and that's the end of the nav section. And then we're going to go to our next section, which is going to be our main section. And in here we're going to have another section tag with the class of main. And then we'll have an H1, it's going to be toys for sale. Under our H1 we're going to put a H3, and that's going to say see all our hot deals. And then under that we'll have a button, and that button is going to have a class of btn blue. Alright, so I pick blue, yeah, I said blue, and then we'll put say see more. And again, these are styles that don't exist yet. We're going to create them in our CSS in just a moment. So we'll save that. And that's the end of the main section. So now you can see over here our HTML is just looking like HTML. There's nothing special about it yet. And that will all change very shortly. So let's finish setting up here. So we got our main section. We're going to set up the info section next. And these, it doesn't really matter what order I'm setting these up in right now, because I'm going to be using CSS Grid to arrange my HTML. And that's what is so powerful about CSS Grid, is I can kind of switch things around and put them in whatever orders I want to. So either way, we've got our section. This is going to be the info section. And inside the info section tags, we're going to have a div with a class of boxes. And yeah, I'll say that. And then we're also going to boxes, and then box 1. Actually, I don't even need that. We're just going to have boxes. I realize I don't even use those. Okay, so then inside this box, we are going to put another font awesome icon. So I'm going to come over here. There it is. Font awesome icon. This one is FA-shield-alt, and I'm giving it an FA times, or 3 times to make it bigger. Then under here we're going to go not H2, say H4, and we're going to say security is our concern. I just made up some stuff. It really doesn't matter whatever you put in here. This is just a fake placeholder for text. And then we're going to go here, go lorem 25 tab, and that gives us some dummy text underneath it. And then we're just going to copy this div 2 more times, just like that. The difference is we're going to change the icons and the text. So this one, we're going to, instead of shield alt, we're going to want chart dash pi. And then the last one, we want mobile alt. Mobile alt, okay, and then here we'll change this text to say open a business then the last one, we're going to say customer service department. Customer service department. Save. Okay, and there we go. All of our icons and our stuff. Great. So that's the end of the boxes section, or the info section. The next section we're going to work on is our items section. So let's get our items section. Okay, and then we're going to do section.items. And then inside here we're going to have a div. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. For this section, this is important because I did this in the CSS later. This section is not going to have a class items, it's going to have an ID of items. And then this div is going to have a class of items. Okay, and then inside here we're going to have an image, and for the source we're going to use unsplash.com, which supplies just a bunch of dummy images for us. Unsplash, so it goes http://source.unsplash.com/random, and then we're going to make them 200 by 200 pixels wide, and that should be it. So we'll save that and see what happens. Should just give us an auto-generated random image. There we go. Okay, great. So now we're going to copy this. We're going to get 10 of these. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those of you that don't know what I'm doing here, all I'm doing is pressing Control D, and it just duplicates whatever line you're on. If I wanted to duplicate more, I'd just highlight more lines, but it just duplicated that. So now if we save that, we'll have 10 images, and right now they're all going to be the same because it's pulling the same random image. So the way that we can change that is just by altering the numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And it does affect the size normally, but because we're going to be using a flex container and everything's going to be contained within, it's not going to make that big of a difference. See how they're kind of like slightly, they're getting bigger and bigger as it goes, but now we've got different images, which is great. Okay. And I think that's the end. Yeah, that's the end of our items section, and the last part of our HTML here, is going to be, as always, a footer. So footer section, and then this is just going to be a footer, and inside here we're going to have p tags, and we're going to say Villa Media Group. You can put whatever you want. This is just the name of my media group. Ampersand copy gives you that copyright symbol. Whoops, why didn't it show up? And copy, there it is. And then I'll put this year, 2019. Save that. Okay, and we're done. We got our images, we got this, we got our boxes. We don't have an image yet. Oh, that's because it's in the CSS. Okay, so our HTML is done. Looks pretty ugly, but we're going to change that now. So now we're going to jump over, and this is where all the length, most of the tutorial is going to take place, is in our CSS folder. So first thing we're going to create is our CSS variables. CSS variables are nice, especially when you're making big applications. I swear I know how to spell variables. It doesn't really matter, whatever. Okay, so to do that, we're going to go root, and that's just to give it to the root folder, and then we're going to go, I'm going to make a variable called border, and that's with this dash border that's assigning the variable, and we're going to say 6 pixels, and this is just a border radius, and I'm going to use, I like to use variables just because it helps you to theme your websites and make everything kind of look similar. So shadow variable, we're going to have this 2 pix, 8 pix, black, and that'll be our shadow, our standard shadow that we're going to go with. We're also going to have a text shadow, and we're going to make this one 0 pixels, 5 pixels, black. Okay, so those 3 are done. Now we're going to add our colors. We're going to say our green is going to be, and I'm just going to copy and paste, actually I'm just going to copy and paste all these colors. You can pause it and type them in if you want to. I just went through and picked my own custom colors that I wanted for my website, and then assigned them to these variables so that I can access them and use the same colors throughout the entire website. So this is what we're going to use in our variables, and that's it for variables right there. So next we're going to go to global styles that we're going to use throughout our entire site. I'm just going to leave a comment here so that we know where we're at. And the first thing we're going to do is go to our body, and we are going to set our background, and we're going to have this, and here's where we're going to use our first variable, and that's how you go var and then like a function, and then you just type in the variable that you want to use. So we're going to use light. So we'll save that. See, now the background has changed to this light variable, which is this like gray color that I picked. Okay, and then we're going to say font, family, and this is where we're going to get that. And actually, for the entire site, I'm going to use this Arial Helvetica Sans Serif. It's just a nice, quick font. You don't have to import it. We're going to say padding 0, and margin 0, and that's just to kind of set up our site here. Okay, great. Next, we're going to access our wrapper, or our wrap, I think is what I called it. Can't remember. Let's go take a look. Div wrap. Okay, yeah, so our wrap, we're going to style our wrap, and we're going to say we'll give ourselves a padding of 0 and then 50 pixels on the left and right. So nothing on the top and the bottom, but we're going to give ourselves some room on the sides here. It's kind of like a container from Bootstrap. Nice pictures. Okay. And then we'll make sure that all of our anchor tags are all devoid of that the bottom underline. We don't want to have the underline, so we're going to say text decoration none, and then our color, we're going to inherit whatever the parent object is. So now we don't have blue links, we don't have underlines there, ready to be styled however we want them to be styled. Okay, and then moving right along, now we're going to set up our button class. So .btn, and this is the one that we've already put onto some of the buttons here. We're going to say padding 10 pixels on the top and the bottom, 15 pixels on the left and the right. We're going to give it a border of none, outline none. We're going to say border radius, and then here's another variable that we're going to use, and this is where we get that border variable. So our border radius is going to be border variable. We're going to say font size 14 points. Actually, yeah, we'll do 4. Let's use rem units because it's better. 1.3 rem. See, there's our button. It already looks good. All these changed too. They're the same. So that's looking good. Okay, and then we're going to say box shadow, and then again we're going to use our variable of shadow. So that's going to automatically add this shadow. There's our buttons. So there we go. See, we're starting to look good. Something is... Oh, I haven't written the styles yet. That's why. And that's the next thing. Transition. We're going to say all 200 milliseconds. We're going to say ease in and ease out. And then that transition that we're going to say, it's going to be .btn active. So that's when you're clicking on it. When you're actively clicking on it, we're just going to make the box shadow go away. So box shadow none. So that way when you click on the button, now it looks like you're actually clicking it down like that. Okay, so the next part I'm actually going to copy and paste in because it's a lot, and you can skip this part if you want to. This is just adding color to the buttons. I'll just kind of explain what I did here in a minute, but it's just a lot of repetitive stuff. So we're starting with right here with button blue, and first of all I did background for the button to make it blue. I used the variable of the light blue. Transition, I'm doing that same exact transition, and then for the hover I made it just a little darker, and then when it's active it's even darker than that, That way, here's our blue button. You can see it just kind of adds a little bit more style to the button, lets people know when they're hovering over it, when they click it, so you're not just kind of guessing. And then I did that with pink, I did that with green, I did that with orange as well. So it's just the same thing across the board. And actually now we can add some color to our buttons. So let's go back to our main site here, and let's take a look at what we've got. So green, pink, orange, and then blue is what I did. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And let's say, so we've got button class button, and then we're going to btn green, btn pink, btn orange, I always misspell orange for some reason, and then btn blue. Now if we save, and then go back to our live server, boom, there's our colored buttons, just like that, and they're all nicely styled. See how nice and easy that is? And that's the beauty of that. If I were to build multiple pages, I can use these buttons over and over this, and I'm basically creating my own framework for CSS as we go. And that's the idea, and that's the beauty of using variables and utilizing CSS the way it's meant to be utilized, because once you get the hang of it and you get good at it, you really don't need to use much else. You can go ahead and take care of it. Alright, so this is where we're going to put our wrap grid area, but we're going to save that part for last, because that part's the fun part. So we're going to skip over to our heading section. And again, I'm just going to leave comments around so I know where I'm at. It's, as these files get bigger, it's easier to just kind of have everything labeled. So we're going to access our header here, and the icons within the header. We're going to say display flex. We're going to say flex wrap. Wrap. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I want this to be no wrap. That's because I don't want that. We're accessing this thing, the header, and I don't want this to go underneath it like that. I want it to stay on the same bar. So I'm saying it's going to be a display flex wrap, no wrap, and then we're going to justify content to be space between so that they align themselves on the outside. We're going to change the background to be bar, and then we're going to use dark blue, and then our grid area. Oh wait, we'll save that for later as well. Okay, so save that, and we should have a weird looking thing. Oh, it's, we haven't finished. All that we did was put that. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, my bad. This is just the header. I thought something was weird. This is just the header. The next one's going to be the header I tag, and in this one, all that we're doing is padding 20 pixels. Okay, save that. There we go. That's much better. And then we're going to access the header h1, and we're going to say margin left. Again, you got to make sure you spell everything right. Margin left. I don't know where my mind is right now. And we're going to say 10 pixels. And then color, we're just going to make it white. Okay. Just like that. Beautiful. So now we've got a nice, we've got our nav buttons, our things starting to come together, starting to look like a website. Okay, so next section is going to be navigation section. And in here, scroll up so you can see it. In here, we're going to have our .navbar nav. I mean, really, we only have one nav, so we don't even need this .navbar in front of it. So I'm just going to go nav, and then we're going to say display flex. So again, we're making a flex container here. I'm going to say flex direction column. Justify content is going to be center. This is creating a side nav bar that we're doing, that we saw in the big one. So I might have to stretch our screen out a little bit if we're going to see it, but let's finish our thing. So we're going to say background, and this we're going to make it to be our variable of blue. Okay, and then the last one, we're going to make it a height of 500 pixels. Save that. And now we've got this ugly looking thing, which is fine. It'll all be aligned, and this is again, it's going to look funny now because we're going to use grid to lay this website out. So right now things are just going to kind of be styled and put in random places, and that's why this kind of looks like this for right now, but that's okay. We're going to move on anyways, and we're going to say nav A, so all the anchor tags inside the nav is going to have a margin, margin, and we're going to say 10 pixels on the top and bottom and 8 pixels on the left and the right, just to space them out a little bit. Okay, it's starting to look better. Great, and that's the end of our nav section. So now let's do our main section. And in here, we're going to access our class main. And let's see, so main, actually we don't need this yet. I'm just going to comment it out. That's where we're going to label our grid area. But we do need main h1. In here we're going to say font size, and scroll up here, we're not at the bottom. Font size, where are we? 55 points. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 55 point font. We are going to say font family. And here's where we're going to use that weird family that we got from Google Fonts. So, get this set up. Okay, there it is. Okay, so let's save that, and you'll see there's our nice font right there. Okay, you can pick any font you want, that's just the one that I happen to pick for this video. Okay, it's really squished, so we're going to change our letter spacing, letter spacing, and we'll give it 10 pixels. I'm also going to have color bar, and we're going to say light. Come on. Okay, save that. And now you can't see it because it's the same color as the background, but that's okay. So we're going to change everything here in a minute. Okay, and there's one more thing we do need. Oh, we do need the main. I was mistaken. So we're going to be adding the image background too. Okay, so background. Come on. Background, and then we'll say URL. And we're going to say ./toys_image. So it's in the same folder. So background size. And I'm going to say fit. Content. Some of these things I'm like, what the heck was I thinking when I wrote this? But I'm not about to test it out now and see if it works or not. We're going to set our min height. And this is going to be set to 500 pixels. And then our overflow. Come on. Our overflow is going to be hidden. Okay, and we're going to save that. And now it should have our image up in here too. And there it is. Great. And you can see our styles and everything's coming together. It's starting to look like an actual site. This is coming along nicely. The next thing I'm going to add here is I'm just going to style our H1. Oops, there we go. So we've got our main, H1, H3, and main button. I'm just giving them all a margin left of 20 pixels just to kind of push them off to the side of this thing, as you'll see here in just a second. It's going to load it up, and now everything's pushed off a little bit, which is great. Okay, so that's the end of that section. Next we're going to style our info section. We're getting close to the end of the CSS here. So bear with me. This is going to be .info, and we're going to make it a display grid. This is our first grid box that we're making now. So now we're going to make the info section grid. We're going to give it a grid gap of, where am I, 15 pixels. And this is just going to put basically a border around everything for me. Grid template columns. And this one we're going to basically define how we want our columns to be broken up, and we're going to use a function called repeat, or a method called repeat. We're going to give it 3. We want it to repeat 3 times, and then 1 fractional. And again, I'm not going too deep into grid right now, but fractional basically just evenly cuts up the page for you. So if I repeat it 3 times, I'm making 3 even columns. No matter what the size of my screen is, there'll always be 3 even columns at this point in time. And you'll see that right here. So this is the section we're doing right now. So if I save it, watch what happens. So now there are 3 even columns, and it just did it for me. Nice and easy. Easy, responsive, done, and done. Okay, so next we're going to create our style for boxes. That was all 3 boxes have this class, so this is affecting all of them. So we're going to give them all a padding of 30 pixels. We're going to give them all a box shadow. And this, again, we're going to use our CSS variable here of shadow. Okay, and voila. It should give us a nice box shadow there. There we go. So you're looking a little boxier now. We are also going to say background. And we're going to use another variable. Oops, not decar. Variable, and this variable is going to be medium, or med, or med. If you're watching med, that's for you, buddy. Display. We're going to give it a flex container. So these boxes are going to be inside of a grid that's already got them lined up in 3 different columns. I'm going to go display flex inside because I want the inside of each box to be a flex container. So now these 3 boxes are in a grid container. Each box individually is going to be a flex container. So now we've got a flex container inside of a grid container. We're going to say flex direction, come on, flex direction column, and that's going to align things from top to bottom rather than from left to right. So we can save it and you'll see what'll happen. I think it's just going to look the same. No, yeah, it looks the same, but it's got the background color now because I changed this med. It's actually this purple color. I don't know, I originally had it 3 shades of gray, and this was like the medium shade of gray, but I changed it to purple because it looked better, and I never changed the name of the variable. Either way, as long as you know what it is, you name your variables whatever you want. It could be dog for all you care. Okay, so let's do align items, and we're going to say center, and then border radius, and this is going to be that variable of border again. Okay, save that, and now when everything aligns, now we've got it all in the center here. We've got a border radius, they're nice and shadowy and all that, and you can see I'm going to make it a little bigger here. There we go. So things are starting to look a little more responsive, which is fun. Let's drop it back down. And give me my window back. Okay, so let's continue on. That's the boxes, and I believe that's all in the boxes section. So let's move on to the item section next. Okay, items section. So we're gonna, remember this is ID items first. So ID items, and we're going to say text align center. We're going to give it a border of 2 pixels, solid, and then we'll say pink. So we're going to do that var pink. Okay, so now we're using our variable pink. Oops, what happened here? Var pink. I somehow got it twice. Alright, there we go. What Let's see what happened. It's freaking out on me. Okay, there we go. So border 2 pixels, solid pink. We're also going to say border radius, and this is again where we're going to use our variable of border. And then we're going to say a margin 20 pixels on the top and bottom, 0 pixels left and right. We're going to change the background to var, and we're going to give it blue. And then our text shadow is going to be var dot text shadow. Let me save that, and that should update our section down here, which it's looking kind of funny. It's just taking a minute for these to actually come in, and actually we're missing something in our section here. I just noticed our actual, let me see if I even put it in the HTML. So let's scroll down to our items section. Looks like I didn't get it. Okay, here it is. Alright, so in our items section right here, and this is the reason that I did these separately. I didn't even put the actual, the whole reason I did this is because I wanted to have a label. And we're going to put that right here. So this H4, our product, goes in between, it goes on top of the div with the class items under the section items, so it's in between those two. So now when we save it, instead of having it like this, it's going to have our title here, which will tell us that this is in fact our products, and there's our text shadow and all that. Okay, so let's go back and style our H4 now. So we'll go down here and we're going to say, oops. Okay, so now we're going to access the ID items again, the H4 tag inside the items, and in here we're just going to change the color to var, we'll do orange, I believe is what I picked, and then font size, I did 3 rem. So you can see some of these I did the rem units, which are more responsive, and then others I still used pixels and all that. I wasn't too picky on where. Alright, so there's that, and then the last thing we're going to access are class items. Oops, items. And then inside here we're going to make it another flex container. Flex. Another flex container. We're going to say flex wrap. This one we do want to wrap. Oops, not flex warp. Flex wrap. We do want this one to wrap as we go, because that's our items here, and we want those to just kind of always be fit inside of our container. We're going to align items, and we want this to be center, and then we're going to justify content again in the center. Okay, so we're going to save, and then the last thing that we want is we want a margin around these so they're not all just stuck together. So we're going to access our items, the images inside the items, and we're just going to give them a margin of 10 pixels. Okay, so that finishes off the items section. One last section to do, and that's our footer. Real simple styles here. In the footer we're just going to say our padding, or actually yeah, our padding is going to be 10 pixels, and we'll do that for our footer, and our paragraph tag inside the footer. Okay, so that's it for now. And then as you can see now, we've got somewhat of a responsive site. Still looks kind of funny, but that's what the grid area is going to take care of, and I wanted to kind of explain a little bit about it before we got into actually using it. So we're going to scroll all the way back up here to our wrap section. We didn't even do anything with the wrap because we just didn't. So for our wrap, we are going to, I'm just going to copy it. Well, actually I'm not. Yeah, I'm going to copy it, and then I'll explain what we're doing here. So let's put it in here. So we're accessing our wrap, the class, the div with the class wrap. We're giving it a display grid, obviously, because we want it to be in a grid container. our grid template columns. So just like before with our items, how we decided, or I'm sorry, these info boxes, we decided we wanted them 3 even columns. That's what those fractionals are. There's 1, 1, and 1. It divides them into 3 things. So this one, we're saying we want 1 fractional and 5 fractionals. So it's just basically going to divide it into 6. 1 plus 5 is 6. It's going to make the first column 1, and then the rest of these will all be, there will be 5 more. So the first column is going to be a lot skinnier than the others, and the reason for that is I want this to be a side navigation and the rest of it to be laid out. And so that's why I picked that. And then from there, what you do is this grid template areas, and this is where it gets kind of fun, and I'm going to kind of space it out here so it's a little easier to see. When I save, Prettier likes to change things for me, which is fine because it actually makes the code easier, but this makes it more visually understandable with what's going on here. So I think of this whole string, basically, this is what your website is going to end up looking like. I don't even know why this is on here twice. Let's get rid of this. So this is what your website's going to look like. We've got our columns set up, so right now it's going to be 1 fraction and 5 fractions. It's going to be divided into 6 even columns, and the first row, or the first column, is only going to be 1 division wide. The next row is going to be 5 wide, so it's going to be a 1 skinny one and a big long one. And so this first word represents what's going in this first fractional. So we're getting the head, the nav bar, the items, boxes, footer. All of this really doesn't matter right now, because I'll show you what the difference is in a minute. So basically I'm putting, this is what's we're gonna name these variables in just a moment here. If I get this thing to stop popping up. So head is gonna be across the entire thing. So it's gonna take up the first column and the second column, that's 5 fractional. So it's just gonna go all the way across, and that's what this thing, we're gonna name the head our header. And then in the next row, we're going to have our nav bar and then our showcase. So here's where it gets differentiated. So our nav bar, which is this whole thing, is only going to take up 1 fractional. So it's going to move to the side, and it's going to take the showcase, which is this whole thing, and it's going to put it right next to it in this section. And you'll see that after we name them. And then under that, our boxes, which is this section, is going to take up both columns, so it's just going to span across the bottom, and then same with the footer. It's going to take up both columns and span across the bottom. Oh, and actually I even forgot that I switched this and didn't put it back. No. Control X, Control V, there we go. Okay, so boxes, items, all that stuff. Okay, so if we save, what you'll notice is that it looks all funny right now, and that something went wrong. Well, what happened is nothing went wrong. It actually divided our thing up the way that we wanted it to be. The problem is that these are not named at all yet. So now we're going to go through and we're going to name each one, starting with the head, and that's going to be in our header. So we're going to go into our header, and you got to make sure it's in the thing, in the tag that's wrapping the entire component, for lack of better words, that you're going to be using. So this whole thing is our head, or our header. So I'm going to go in here and we're going to say grid area, and we're going to name it head. And then for the next part, the nav bar is obviously going to be our navigation, and that's, the nav is not what's wrapping it. So we're going to say dot nav bar. It's a div container. The section container named navbar, or with the class navbar, is what holds that. So we're going to say grid area navbar. Okay, and then the next section is going to be our showcase, and our showcase is going to be in main, and this dot main is perfect. So we're going to go down here and say grid area showcase. And then the next one is boxes, items, and footer. So boxes is going to be, here's boxes, and actually, I didn't even name this. Info section. Yeah, whatever, 2 eyes. So in this dot info, that's where we want it. So we're going to come in here and say grid area boxes, and then down here for items, in ID items, this is why I named it ID, so I can differentiate between the two. And this one, this is where we want our grid area to be labeled. Grid area, and this is items. And then the last one, or I'm sorry, last one is our footer. We don't want the paragraph, we just want the footer. Is going to be grid area footer. Now what's going to happen when we save this, and I'm going to pull this up here so we can see it. So when we save this, now you can see the nav bar is here on the side. We've got our showcase here in the middle. The boxes are here underneath. Our products are down here, and these again are inside of a Flex container, so they're already responsive like this, which is great. Wonderful. Look at that. That's nice and responsive. This gets a little squishy. We're going to fix that in a minute. This gets a little squishy. We're also going to fix that, but this looks fine. And if we get all the way down to cell phone view, you can see everything. I mean, these obviously need to be fixed. This obviously needs to be fixed, but this thing's okay. These guys are responsive. They've already aligned themselves the way. That's the great thing about Flexbox, is it's already taken care of some of the responsiveness for me. But now we got to take care of the rest of the site, because there's a couple things that don't look good when we do it. So let's go ahead and get that cracking. So to do that, we're going to take advantage of using media queries to basically rearrange the site when we get to certain widths. So down here, I'll try to go quick so we can finish up this video. We're going to say at media, and we're going to say only screens, and we're going to say max width, and we're going to give this one 1,000 pixels. Okay, now in our 1,000 pixels, I'm just going to copy and paste some things and then tell you what we're changing here, just for the sake of time. See my prettier automatically jump that up for me. Okay, so when it's 1,000 pixels, we're going to access the wrapper, so the entire container. Display grid, we don't need that, it's already a displayed grid. But our grid template columns, we're going to change them to all be one fractional. No more of this 1 and 5 business. And then our grid template area, you notice we changed it, since it's only one column now. We're going to have the first column be the head, the second one be the nav bar, the next one be the showcase, items and boxes. I flipped again, and I'll show you why in a second here. But for now, I'm going to set it back to the way I had. So items, boxes, and then footer. So everything's going to be one fractional, all up and down. Our nav bar, the nav, we're going to change the height to fit content. The flex direction, instead of going up and down in a column, we're going to make it left and right by setting it to row. And then the links inside, we're going to have them fit content so that they're not just spanned across the entire screen. And then we change up our margin a little bit because now they're no longer aligned up and down, they're going to be left and right, so we want some more padding in between and not on top and bottom. So if we save that and then go look at our site, I think is this the one I was using? Yeah, let's close this demo one down, I don't need that. Okay, so here's the one we're working on. So now our site, so what happens is when it gets to 1,000 pixels, because I rearranged the grid area to be one column instead of 1 and 5 like it is right now, it's 1 and 5. When it gets to 1,000 pixels, it's gonna flip, and it put my nav bar up on top. It changed the flex direction to be row, and now it looks a lot better for this screen. And you can see this is all one fractional now, so they're not as squished. Everything just responded very nicely, and this, I mean, look at how long it took us to do that. So now as we get smaller, you can see there's still an issue here. You know, when we get down to cell phone view, our things are out of line, everything's all kind of weird looking now. So we gotta make it more responsive. We're not quite done yet, but we do have this, and that's the beauty of the grid area, is you can just quickly change where you want things. And that's what I was going to show you well, let me finish the responsiveness, because we're going to drop down to 720 and then 480. So I'm just going to copy and paste here and then again walk through the code. So here's our next media query. It's going to be max width of 720. So it's just a little bit smaller than this one. And the only thing that we're changing is our section. We're going to change it to one fractional, or our info section, sorry. And that's those 3 purple boxes, these guys here. We're going to change it from 3 fractionals, or sorry, from 3 columns to just 1 column. And then our navigation bar, our anchor tags are going to fit content, which they already do, so that's redundant. Let's get rid of that. We're going to change the margin to just be 5 pixels all around rather than this 8 and 20 business. Our wrapper, we're going to change the padding on the wrapper. I think it's 50 at the top. We're changing it to 20. We don't need as much padding on a smaller screen. Our button, our font size is going to drop down to 11 so that the buttons aren't so huge and enormous and the fonts aren't crazy and in your face. And then the last thing is our image. We're going to change the margin around the images to be 5 pixels just to make things a little bit better. So let's save that. Let's pull up our site now. And as you can see, here we are. This is just under 1,000 right there. And then you can watch these purple boxes as we get to 720. Boom, they switch to one fractional, just like that. And now you can see our margin on the sides got less, the margin in between these guys, everything looks a little bit more responsive. It's better for this smaller screen. So let's see what happens when we get even smaller now. Even smaller. Okay, so here's our phone view, and it's almost there. There's just a few things we want to add to our cell phone view, because it's not quite where we want it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to copy and paste the last media query here, which is going to be for 480 pixels and smaller. So here we are, max width 480. The items tag is now going to have a flex direction of column. So instead of being a row with flex wrap like it has been, so that it's responsive. Let me pull it back up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Instead of having it, align itself like this in a row, when it gets to 480, it's going to drop down to a column, so that you can see the images automatically fill that column. It looks a lot better like that, so that's good. And then we also are taking away, we're going to say, and the items, I made them 90% width, so they don't take up the full screen, but they fill up nicely and give a little bit of a border on the side. And then our wrap, I took the padding away to 0. So you can see we no longer have padding on the sides here, so everything is nice and responsive, and that is the whole website right there. So you can see it goes from cell phone view, stretches out, gets our padding back and our wrapper. When it gets to bigger, it gives us a side nav rather than the top nav. Our images and everything is nice and responsive. You can see, boom, those changed as you get even smaller. Whoops. As you get even smaller, boom, the products change as well, and now you've got a fully responsive site, just like that. So that's about it. That's the entire thing. Again, all of the code for this is on GitHub, and it's up there. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to show you guys, and this really shows you the true power of CSS Grid. And that's why I was rearranging things. So say that you come in here and your boss is like, it looks nice. Or whoever your client or whoever's working for you, like they're like, it looks nice, but this is an e-commerce place. You've got our products down here at the bottom. Like, what the hell? And that normally you're like, oh man, like I gotta move all this stuff around, and there's things that are gonna be affected, and blah blah blah. I mean, if you're smart and you laid it out the right way, it wouldn't be too big of a deal. I mean, this is kind of a bad example, but let me just show you how quick it is to just quickly rearrange things. So let's say that they're like, yeah, we want the products up here and all these boxes down on the bottom. We don't need to see these boxes. So you're like, okay, no problem. You're like, oh, I'll have that done in a week. You open up your CSS here and you're like, okay, so he wants the boxes underneath the items. So we're just literally going to move them like that. So see, and that's all you got to do. And then we'll go to the media query as well. And we'll say, okay, I know he's going to say something if I don't change this one too, so let's just put our boxes here. Good, so items and boxes have switched. Now let's go up here and look. And just like that, our items and boxes have switched. Say they want the navigation on the right side instead of the left side. Well, that's easy to fix too. You just go up here and we'll say, okay, well that's in our bigger one, so let's go here and we'll just change this from 1 to 5, and we'll switch this like that, and then we'll just flip the position of the nav bar in the showcase, save, and you'll see now we've got a right side navigation, and yeah, that's it. So that's the power of CSS Grid. As you can see, when we did the media query, it was very easy to just realign this and put our nav bar up on the top. If we wanted to, say, switch the side of our nav bar, we quickly did that without any trouble. And it just makes things really easy to make a really responsive, customizable web page. So that's about it. Thank you guys for watching again. Have a good one.